Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lone Stunner podcast, and this is episode 53 of my side quest. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the recent news around the fine that Chris Eubank Jr. has received following his egg slap of Conor Benn. Now, this felt like it happened a while ago, but it kind of did, but this wasn't that long ago. Chris Eubank Jr. slapped Conor Benn round the face with an egg at their press conference. I suppose it's supposed to be like a subliminal, message around that Conor Benn saying he failed a drug test because of a contaminated egg. So Conor Eubank slapped him with an egg, which is, hilarious and a viral moment and will make the fight sell way more. But on the back of that, Chris Eubank obviously has been fined £100,000. Now, I guess, it's a lot of money for an egg, but I suppose it's supposed to act as a deterrent to people not attacking your opponent at a press conference. So, you're not supposed to do that, and you did, so you're gonna get fined 100 grand. So I guess in that sense, fair enough. But 100 grand's a lot of money for an egg. It is. Don't consider it 100 grand. Having to pay 100 grand because you hit someone with an egg is crazy. But like I said, it's supposed to act as a deterrent. And ultimately, these guys will make that money back hand over fist with the amount of more pay-per-view sales they'll get off the hype that generated. Now, I can imagine Conor Benn wasn't very, very pleased with that. And I don't know who that fine will go to, actually. I don't know if that fine will go to the Boxing Board of Control or if that fine will go to Conor Benn. I don't know. I haven't read the article and I'm probably not going to. But yeah, that moment will definitely sell the fight. And if you look at it in one way, that 100 grand could be seen as, a good investment because Chris Eubank Jr. is going to make that back tenfold off the back of this fight. And this is the biggest fight for Chris Eubank at the moment. It's bigger than any world title fight that he could get, of course. With the world title fight, there's the added prestige. But he would lose to any of the world champions currently at middleweight and super middleweight, obviously. But yes, this is realistically the biggest winnable fight for Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Jr. has been in there with better operators than Conor Benn. He's lost to them. Don't get twisted. He's lost to them. He's been in there with guys who are bigger and better boxers than Conor Benn, like George Groves. He lost to George Groves. Billy Joe Saunders. He lost to Billy Joe Saunders. And even though Liam Smith is small for middleweight, he's still bigger than Conor Benn. And again, he beat Chris Eubank, but Chris Eubank did actually beat him in the rematch. But yeah, I think it's going to be, in theory, should be a very easy night for Chris Eubank, if I'm being honest. Of course, he is past his prime. He is shot to bits. He is old. He's got a lot of miles on the clock at this point. He's been through some wars. He's been stopped by Liam Smith. And Conor Benn, to be fair to him, probably is the most explosive puncher that Chris Eubank would have fought. He probably is the biggest puncher, pound for pound, that Chris Eubank would have fought because George Groves wasn't a huge puncher. Billy Joe Saunders, not a puncher at all. And Liam Smith stopped Chris Eubank. And I don't think Liam Smith's a huge puncher like that at all. He's got some knockouts on his resume, but he's not a massive puncher the same way Conor Eubank is at all. At all. So he's got that going for him. And of course, Chris Eubank is getting older. And Conor Benn's, in theory, in his prime, but he's tiny. He's a welterweight fighting a guy in Chris Eubank Jr. who's won world titles at super middleweight. Now, there's a lot of controversy around, the weight limits and all this. And Chris Eubank Sr.'s even talked about, he's a 168. He's not. These guys are able to really sort of shape the media narrative when it suits them, right? When Chris Eubank Jr. was at 168, Chris Eubank Sr. was saying he's too small for that, he should go down to middleweight. Now that he's fighting at super middleweight and they want him to fight at middleweight, he's too big for middleweight now. You can't have it both ways. And there's plenty of hypocrisy in the Eubank boxing circle. Harlem Eubank recently won a fight and had a really good performance in that fight. He fought the other day in Brighton. And people were saying, he would be a better fight for Conor Benn. Looking at it stylistically and looking at the weight classes as well, both guys are much nearer each other in size rather than, Chris Eubank Jr. who's fighting 2 weight classes above, right? But yeah, the deadline is, 100 grand fine for Chris Eubank Jr. It'll be worthwhile. Hilarious moment, generational moment, slapping Conor Benn with an egg. We should see more of this in press conferences, but I guess if guys are getting fined 100 grand, we know why they're not doing this often in press conferences. Even though recently we did see Teofimo Lopez slap his opponent at the press conference, but that was after he knocked off his hat and stuff. The old saying in boxing is, don't F up the money. So that's by fighting before the fight, like hitting each other in the press conference. Don't F up the money, because we're going to fight when we fight anyway. So if you hit him before the press conference, the fight might get called off, you might get fined, whatever. Don't F up the money is the saying, right? Chris Eubank clearly doesn't live by that code. And, I'm here for it. That was a viral moment. Man, I said it's a viral moment, and it's the sort of thing that's going to sell the fight way more. I think Conor Benn will lose. I think Chris Eubank Jr. will win this fight. But I'm going to be tuned in. For sure, I'm going to be tuned in. So I'm hoping it's going to be an exciting fight. Both guys have got pretty exciting styles, in terms of, styles make fights. Conor Benn's going to be pushing the pace. Chris Eubank Jr. fights best on the front hand, even though he's recently been trying to turn himself into a counter boxer, which, with his physical traits and his attributes, in addition to his age, isn't a good move for me. Where Chris Eubank Jr. he's a volume puncher, and he can bang. He's guys aren't walking through his punches. He can bang, but he's a volume puncher at heart. Now he wants to be like a reflex counter puncher. He's 36. Even in his prime, he wasn't defensively amazing, but he was one of these guys where his offense was his defense, if I'm making sense. But yeah, great moment. 100k fine for Chris Eubank Jr. He'll just affirm it. I know he's up. He's been in multiple world title fights, multiple big events, multiple pay-per-view headliners. He's got the money to pay for it, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's next for these two, if they have any more press conferences. I saw they recently did an interview with Piers Morgan. I haven't watched that yet, but maybe I'll get to that at some point today. But yeah, that's it from me. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.